Now available in paperback and e-readers. John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes, 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. In a previous video, I talked about the final simp. Now, what is a final simp? Well, a final simp is the guy a woman gets involved with when she runs out of options as related to relationships. Now, most of these women who get involved with a final simp usually have had multiple boyfriends, have been married and divorced multiple times, and have had illegitimate children or legitimate children by other men. And because these women have basically ran through all of their options as related to finding a man or a husband, what happens with most of these women is they become desperate and they wind up getting involved with the last man that they will ever get involved with, and that man is the final simp. Now, the final simp is something that I heard Tariq Nasheed touch on many years ago when he was talking about Evelyn Lozada, and I believe she was involved with Chad Ochocinco at the time. And Tariq Nasheed talked about how many women, what they will do is get involved with one good simp when they're running out of options, and this man will be the one who will have to suffer through all of the issues that this woman had with all of these other men. Now, the final simp, as I see it as a concept, is very similar to the final girl in the horror movie, because the final girl in the horror movie usually has to go out here and confront the slasher or the killer in the movie and has to survive, and is the last one to survive the entire encounter with that slasher or that killer in the horror movie. And the final simp is the guy who, after this woman has been with all of these different guys, has to go out here and deal with all of the horrors that this woman has endured as related to all of those failed relationships, and he is the one who has to deal with the horrors and the torment of trying to have a relationship with this woman. Now, this reason why the final simp winds up having to deal with all of these horrors is because the final simp usually has low self-esteem, and because he has low self-esteem, he's looking to just find any woman who will pay him attention. And in some cases, what these guys do is they create fantasies about this woman as related to who she was in the past, not understanding that this woman has emotional baggage in the present. Now, cinematic examples of final simps include Cleveland Brown from The Cleveland Show, and in real life, a final simp is Richard Lawson, who was recently divorced from Tina Knowles. Now, the final simp usually is, again, like the final girl in the horror movie, and oftentimes the final girl, she will have the final confrontation with the slasher, but the final simp, what he does is he has the final relationship with this woman, and it becomes a horror show that is basically a nightmare that he endures. Now, many of the final simps, because they live in rose-colored realities, go out here and believe that this woman is still the same as she was when he was younger, and oftentimes final simps, when they get involved with this woman, have an idea that they project onto that woman, believing that she's still the ideal that he has imagined, not understanding this woman has gone through a metamorphosis like Ringo has talked about. Because when this woman went out here and got involved with other guys, what she did was go out here, and if she had sex with these men in a marriage or in the relationships, what she did was take on the spirits of those men, and she took on the DNA of those men, and she formed emotional and spiritual bonds with those men. And now that she's broken up with those men, she's got a lot of different spirits and DNA inside of her, and all of those different spirits are pulling at her soul. And as those spirits pull at her soul and she's dealing with the emotional trauma from all of those failed relationships, this woman is basically having serious emotional issues. And what she does when she gets involved with the final simp is she takes out all of her anger and frustration out on the final simp. Now, the final simp, he's thinking he's going to be able to finally get with the girl of his dreams, and he's believing that he has an actual shot at having a good relationship, but there is no chance of him having any sort of good relationship with this woman because she's already been numbed emotionally, and she cannot pair bond because she has all of these different spirits inside of her from other men, and she has all of this mental and emotional damage from other men. So there's no way she can go out here and bond with that man. Moreover, this woman cannot trust any other man because she's got a lot of hurt and pain from previous relationships as related to failed relationships with boyfriends, failed marriages, and all of that emotional baggage makes it where this woman is filled with a lot of anger towards those men. And because she has all of this anger towards those men, what she does is take all of that anger out on the final simp. So the final simp doesn't get any love. No, what the final simp gets is a lot of contempt, and that's all he gets expressed towards him because this woman cannot love him at all. No, she doesn't care about him at all outside of two reasons. One reason is she basically is getting involved with this guy because she wants to try to sate her feelings and try to get her confidence back after having her ego bruised. So many of these women, because they wind up getting their heart broken, they start to feel a low sense of self-worth, and in order for them to feel any sort of confidence, they go out here and get involved with the final simp. Again, this woman basically, she's looking to try to find a way to get her groove back, so she will go out here and look to get involved with the final simp, not because she likes him, but because she wants to try to boost her confidence. So what she will do is go out here and get involved with the final simp, hoping to get a way to make herself feel better about herself. And as she looks to feel better about herself, she gets involved with this final simp who actually thinks that she wants him for him, when in actuality, what she wants him to do is boost her self-confidence. Now, the other reason why a lot of women will get out here and get involved with the final simp is because they're desperate as related to their lack of options, and a lot of them know that they don't have prospects with the guys they actually want because most of the guys they actually want are married. Most of the guys they want actually don't see them as a viable side piece. Most of the guys that they want basically know all about her, and with her out of prospects, she knows she has next to no options for people to give her attention or validation. So what she does is get desperate and sees this guy, the final simp, as the final chance for her to have any guy who will pay her any attention. And because he's the last option, she will pick him last. But this guy, because he has low self-esteem, can't see how he's being disrespected. Now, with most of your final simps, these guys, again, they don't see how they're disrespected because they're being picked last. And because they're desperate, they're willing to accept being picked last. And they think being picked last is something good. But what they don't understand is that if she didn't pick you first, then she never had any respect for you. So these guys will sit there and think, oh, I'm finally getting attention from the girl of my dreams. But what's happening is she's basically showing you the ultimate form of disrespect, because what she's doing is coming to you after she's already been married to one dude, had multiple boyfriends, and has basically been divorced or had a bunch of kids by another man. She comes to you after she's been and had all of her good times. After she's had all of her good times, she goes out here and comes to the final simp and tells the final simp he has to go out here and accept her at her worst, at the bottom as related to her life. And that is the ultimate slap in the face to most men. But the final simp, because he has low self-esteem and is extremely desperate for any crumbs of attention that this woman gives him, he will happily and eagerly go out here and try to get with this woman, believing that she's just as good as she was before, and not understanding how he's just been completely insulted and disrespected, because for her to come to him at her worst and then say, oh, you can have me after I've already had my life, and say that he's dead last. I mean, that is the ultimate form of disrespect. And again, the final simp thinks, oh, I've got a shot at something, when in actuality you have a shot at absolutely nothing. Now, the final simp is like the guy who goes down to the used car lot, sees a 1976 Monte Carlo, and it's the car of his dreams, and that car is covered in rust. It has rusty quarter panels, it has a seized engine, and it has a rat-filled interior, and it's just basically roached out. And he'll sit there and go, oh, this is the car of my dreams, because he's caught up in his feelings about that car. And he creates a covert contract where he thinks he can fix this car up. But the big problem is that this car has so much damage that it becomes a money pit, and it becomes where it's going to cost more than the car is worth to go out here and fix. Now, this same guy could actually take his money and go find a nice, good condition Monte Carlo with good paint, good clean quarter panels, and no rust, and a clean interior. But because he's caught up in his feelings and he focuses on that one vehicle, and that's why he winds up dealing with something that becomes a horror and a nightmare to go out here and deal with. And the same thing with the women out here. The final simp, he'll go out here and be like, he's fixated on this one woman, similar to Richard Lawson and Tina Knowles. I mean, he's sitting up there thinking, oh, I've got a shot, not understanding that this woman isn't the same woman because of the multiple life experiences she's had in the past, and she's not the same woman you knew when you were younger. No, this is a completely different woman, and she's a completely different woman with a completely different perspective, and she's become bitter and cynical as related to the failure of marriages and failure of relationships, and she's looking for somebody to go out here and get involved with, again, to sate her ego and boost her confidence and her self-esteem. And as she's doing this, she looks to tear a man down in order to build herself up, because women who get involved with final simps oftentimes go out here and verbally and emotionally abuse that guy and project all of the anger that they have for other men on them, and they'll go out here and again verbally and physically abuse that man, and he'll be sitting there thinking, oh, I gotta put up with this because this is the girl of my dreams. But the thing is, he's tormented like a character who's a victim in a horror movie, and it's a torment that just this guy endures, and he endures it because, again, he just is so caught up in his feelings about this woman that he's not thinking critically about how he's basically wasting his time, something that he will never get back as related to his life. He will never get that time back, but he really is trying to make things work when they're not going to work. And that's another part of what makes the final simp a victim that winds up like the characters in a horror movie. He keeps trying to make things work that aren't working, and he keeps trying to delude himself into thinking he can make this work, but he can't make it work because this woman is broken and there's no way to go out here and fix her. No, what these guys think is, oh, since she's on the lot of Bustdown and she's got a 50, 60, 70, even 80% off social marketplace price, he can get a good deal, but he winds up getting a raw deal when he's in a relationship with a toxic woman who won't go out here and even show him basic respect, and leaves him with an ashy dick and extra dry balls, because she's not dropping the skid mark thong or allowing him to get a taste of the atomic waste from the special place on his carbon rod. No, he can't get none of that, because again, this woman never had any respect for him, and all she's doing is looking to torment him because she can't get that power in the relationship with other guys, and she can't get any involvement with other guys. So because she's frustrated and angry about how those guys did her, what she does is look to take out all of her anger on those other guys. She looks to take out all of it on the final simp. And again, the final simp is usually the woman's last chance, because she goes out here and abuses the final simp, and she abuses the final simp until he usually can't take anymore. And then usually once the woman breaks up with the final simp and gets her ego sated after related to taking out all of her anger on that guy, what she does is wind up in Bustdown in apartment 8D or apartment 7C for the rest of her days, because no other guy wants to get involved with her after she's been involved with the final simp. And again, the final simp usually is the woman's last chance at any sort of relationship, but the whole thing is she's so caught up in her emotions about all the hurt she's had in the past that she can't see how she's destroying her final chance at a relationship in the future, because she's so angry at all of those other men that she can't see how she's destroying her one last prospect. And that is the tragic end of the whole paradigm of the final simp. And again, the final simp usually is the guy who has to take all of the abuse, usually has to take all of the drama, has to deal with all of the baggage, has to deal with the children, the baby daddy, and all of this nonsense. And he deals with it because he again has a fantasy in his mind about what this woman was like when she was younger, not understanding that that is not the same woman you're dealing with right now. And again, he winds up becoming the final victim as related to having a relationship with this toxic woman. And the final simp usually winds up with the one who winds up becoming the most bitter and angry, because he has to deal with all of that anger. And again, the final simp usually winds up in the end of a bad relationship because he really doesn't understand how things work. And he winds up in that bad relationship because he doesn't know that he could get better or do better. No, he winds up with somebody who is just a bitter older woman, and he winds up in a bitter place. And he winds up in a bitter place because he just doesn't know that she's not the sweet girl he used to know back in the day. Now, if you want to learn how to not be a final simp, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance at other online booksellers like Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Walmart, Target, and Smashwords. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.